Welcome to the first episode of the Energize with Bram podcast. Joining me today is a very, very special guest. He's actually physically in another location because that's the sort of man he is. He travels lots. He changes lives all around the planet. And he is no one less than the man that changed his brain. Formally welcoming Ray Behan, who's joining me from Perth. Hello, Ray.
Hey, Bram. Thank you for having me here. I'm very, very honored to be sharing this knowledge and information with you and everybody watching. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you as well. It's very much of a pleasure, Ray, to welcome you back. Just briefly, tell us a little bit more, like where did this saying of the man that changed his brain come from?
Yeah, sure. Long story short, Bram, had a very serious head injury at 7 years of age. About 35% of people die from that particular injury. 33% in around are left with permanent disability. And then the other 33, kind of go on to a better existence. And what happened then was I attended a Christian Brothers school, and the Christian Brothers really came down very heavy on me when I went back to school after I left hospital. And rather than give me a place of just comfort to just say, look, just let me breathe and just get well, they didn't. I went the other way. And they completely traumatized me from the age of about 8 till I was 15. Just with my learning disabilities, they really portrayed that to the school and the class and everything else. That led to stress. And then the whole thing turned into temporal lobe epilepsy. I then went to my doctors. They gave me prescriptions, told me come back every 3 months for the next 70 years. And that's it. I was just thrown on the heap with everybody else who's just medicated, no solution. So I didn't want to take Tegretol. I took 6 pills per day. I took 40,000 pills. I didn't want to keep doing it. So I had to learn something. So I went off. I made my own determination. I literally traveled the world. I met with some of the greatest people in this space in neuroplasticity. I now are blessed to have a great relationship with a neurodegenerative scientist, brain scientist, and build all these relationships and associations. And then I started to understand the power of meditation. So meditation is a biological phenomenon and a quantum phenomenon. Meditation, people just think is meditation. Meditation is a brilliant rewiring neuroplasticity mechanistic function that the brain will adapt to. So I put it all together and I sat down one day for about 3 months. And then over that period of time, I literally made sure that I rewired my brain. I then went back to my doctors and back to my specialist. And thankfully, I kept all the paperwork and I healed myself and medication free. So what I do now is, I now teach this stuff and I really love going around and teaching it. And I finished this podcast. I just go back out to my team and we're meeting to set up our tours for Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide, Rome, London and Dublin. And as you know, Bram, they're not 20, 30 people workshops. Thousands of people turn up to these workshops to learn this brilliant stuff because it doesn't just affect people with brain disorders or brain injuries. This affects at a fundamental level everything in a person's existence. From the issue with their relationship, to the issue with their health, to the issue with their toxicity, to the issue with their disconnection to the things that they want to create in their life, to every single issue. So I went to the root cause of human existence and rewired myself from the root cause of human existence upwards. And that's what I'm really passionate about sharing and teaching because it is so brilliantly in capturing, engaging, and relatable to most people on the whole planet.
This is such a great topic, Ray. And look, we obviously have known you for quite a number of years. We've seen you like where you were and where you are today. And it's so true. Anytime when you show up somewhere, there's a whole room filled with people and people standing outside who can't get in just because of the sort of knowledge you share and the changes you're making in other people. And it all started with your own mind. So I love this topic. So you've obviously said where you're traveling to next, and that is really like not the slightest, it's like covering all continents. Tell us a few things of recent changes that you have seen that have occurred in people as a result of them working with you and using this information and apply it to their lives.
Just imagine that somebody comes along and they've got an issue in their life, be it a relationship issue. And let's say they were able to understand the complexity of that relationship issue and how they relate to the toxicity of their issue in their relationship. And they started to see a pattern. And the pattern had a common denominator. And the common denominator was them, which for some people can be difficult and challenging. But the common denominator is them. What that does, Bram, is that puts us back in the driver's seat because, and then the same with our health. So let's say, for example, we have a health issue. Now, let me give you some numbers around health issues because I think like it's astounding that the medical world intently, knowingly stay in their own state of ignorance. You see, Bram, ignorance is a choice. And today, at the push of a button, we can access the greatest, latest research literature on this planet at the push of a button. So in other words, at the push of a button, I can go onto my computer and I can find research papers outlining how people who had cancers and refused medical intervention and healed those cancers using these processes that I teach. Yet you walk into your doctor tomorrow and your doctor says, hey, got your blood test and you now have an autoimmune disease. And you say to your doctor, hey, doc, how do you think I got this disease? And your doctor says to you, it's probably genetic. Well, let me tell you, Bram, saying that an autoimmune disease is genetic is like saying that it's easy to swallow a Toyota Corolla. It just is not true. There is no gene for any autoimmune disease. Lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, celiac, psoriasis, you name it. You go on, diabetes 1, there's no gene for these things. So in other words, where are they coming from? And that brings us back to what I discovered and learned and what I teach is that we are the rock from which all of this grew. All of this grows from this one space. Now, what that does is, isn't that a piece, just think about this, Bram, isn't that a piece of brilliance that, and by the way, can I just go back to the doctors again and the specialists for a moment? And I'm not being disingenuous to them. They play a great role. They helped me for many years. They saved my life. They repaired me and healed me when I was injured, when I was broken, when my head was cracked open. And they looked after me and they cared for me and they got me to where I am today. But it is astounding that they still refuse to look at the root cause of all of these conditions. So rather than find the cause, they treat the after effect.
That's it.
Rather than
symptoms.
Find the cause.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Now we come along and realize if I'm the cause of my autoimmune disease, which are on the increase, Bram, by the way, at 45% every 4 years now, 9% per year, that is astonishing numbers. Mm-hmm. Women are more likely to develop an autoimmune disease at the ratio of 3-1 to men, whereas 20 years ago it was men to woman, 1-1. So women are getting sicker than we are. Let's say I'll give you another statistic, Bram. Mm-hmm. Let's say we bring 100 women to the doctor and they've all developed breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And we look at the genetic makeup of those people. Do you know, Bram, that only 7 of every 100 women who are diagnosed with breast cancer carry the gene? The rest, they activated that gene themselves. So again, Bram, that puts us back in the driver's seat. Now we're in control, we're in charge, but we have to be willing to get into that driver's seat. So now in getting into that driver's seat, what type of outcomes do our students and clients have? I think that this is so, oh my God, just imagine relating this to your life right now. And here's the outcomes. We have people who refuse medical intervention and decided to go their own way and done the herbal teas and the gluten-frees and the diets and so on and so forth. But when we brought them into the work that we do at a very, very deep level beyond the material world, and that means the material world is the world of cells, atoms, organs and things, people, planets and places, and went from the material world into what is the foundation of the material world, of everything in this material world, including your tree in your garden, your neighbor's cat next door, and you as a person, all culminate at the fundamental level of space-time reality that's called frequency. So everything in the globe is frequency. Everything in the universe is energy. And it's real. This is not whoopee-doo witch science. This is absolutely real science. Now, if everything is frequency and everything according to the laws of thermodynamics that is not vibrating at its optimal will suffer from what's called entropy, which is destruction of a system because it's not vibrating at its optimal. And you take a bowel, a heart, a throat of a human, and that has a sickness or an illness or a disease, thyroid issues, bowel cancers, all these different things, irritable bowel syndrome, absolute stress effect of stress. And you go to the absolute core of every single system and organ in that human, and then you look at the vibration of that and you see that from a thermodynamics perspective, that person is not, that system in this body is not vibrating at its optimal. Well then, doesn't it make sense that if we want to turn water into ice, well, all we have to do is put water in the freezer and it turns to ice. What does it do? It changes its frequency. So one thing becomes another thing based on frequency.
Yep.
We come in now and we teach these people how to get into the core of them, the core of themselves, to go right to the level of their frequency, and to teach them then how to use the biological quantum epiphenomenon of meditation that's done in a particular way to help them to bring the vibration of that system that is suffering back to optimal. And when it does, they're the people that say to us, oh my God, I went to my doctor, I had my blood test again, and I had cancer. I had stage 4 prostate cancer. I had a brain tumor. I had asthma. I've had chronic anxiety for 20 years where I just was stuck in my life. I was heavily medicated. We have so many of these stories. I had lung cancer, and now I'm walking 7Ks a day. How does all of that happen? They're the real stories, Bram. So now what you and your audience can rest and relax into is the fact that it's not just an Irish guy sitting on a chair telling a story. There is something very profoundly effective behind all of this. And that is in our brilliant, brilliant testimonials that we've been able to capture over the past years to express to people the power of the work that they can do themselves to heal their body, to heal their mind, to heal their life. So they come along, Bram, and they say, went to my doctor. Doctor said, did you take all your medication? The person says, no, I didn't take any medication. And the doctor says, geez, that's what we call a spontaneous remission from disease. Bram, there is no such thing as spontaneous remission from disease.
That's exactly
the body
right.
doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
It was purely, be it subconscious. In other words, they didn't quite know that they were doing it to that level, but the body doesn't make mistakes, Bram. The body is so dynamically brilliant and perfect that to say that the body makes mistakes, this brilliant, perfect machine, it means that we create and cause all our illnesses and difficulties. And if somebody develops irritable bowel syndrome, whatever disease that they develop, multiple sclerosis, whatever it is, that was an intentional thing that the body was responding back to the emotional frequency, energy-based state of being of that person. Bram, disease is your body sick. Let me backtrack.
Actually, if I can just pause you there for a moment. So far, what I've heard you here say, Ray, is there's a huge disconnect between what the typical Western world is trying to make us believe, which is everything is in the genes, in the DNA. It's all kind of deterministic. You either have it or you don't. What you're saying is it's so much more beautiful than that. Your body will emulate what you basically put into, and you can put the hands back on the steering wheel. You don't need a series of pills. You know, if it's a health-related thing, you basically decide where you want to take this. So you can be healthy, you can be wealthy, you can be happy or unhappy. You decide. So you're coming in from a very empowering angle, and you're using science behind meditation to help people get there. Is that right?
Absolutely. You nailed it, Bram. Very well put. Great monologue. Very well put. And it's not about saying to somebody, get off your medication. It's not about that. Because like I said, that keeps people sane, it keeps people straight, it keeps people well, and so on and so forth. It plays a role. What I'm saying is this, is that the scientific research is showing there's something greater than the pill. There's something better than going and lying on a slab and having your body cut open with a scalpel. There are other things now that we can do. And the world is really capturing and opening up to this science. So yes, it is the foundation of meditation is the doorway that we can open. So I think a lot of people got confused with meditation through the years and thinking that, it's a great way of just keeping your mind calm. Meditation is a phenomenal function that the body and brain cannot ignore. And when practiced in a particular way, they're the people that have those spontaneous remissions from diseases. Now, you talked for a moment about abundance. Well, let me tell you, if you want to be well, you have to feel well. And you can do that in your meditation. So in your meditation, it's where you become a new person. It's where you become a new being. It's where you capture new things. Now, at the same time, then, if you are in a toxic relationship, well, guess what? In meditation, you can do the same thing. You can become a new being, a new person. And you create that new existence in your meditation. If you're separated from abundance, well, let me tell you, deep within your subconscious mind, probably lodged somewhere in your corpus callosum, that's that inhibitory brain neuron section across the two brain hemispheres, right in there, there's a latching mechanism that latches onto the fact that you're broke, and it will keep you broke. So you can read all the books, do all the investments that you want. But if you have a subconscious poverty mindset and it vibrates at that level, until you change that vibration, you might find that things will be just difficult for you. But if we get in and find a root cause of that, they're the people that come along and say, oh my God, look at the experience I had.
Great stuff. I love this stuff so much, Ray, and we've had already countless conversations over a nice Pinot or, Cap Sava over together. One thing that I think is important also for people that are a bit skeptical potentially, or saying like, I'm in this medical profession, I don't know any better, and this is what I swear by, and I believe it, and I don't, anything that comes out outside of that, I don't believe, or I'm wary of. Just tell us, you've learned with and spoken with and hang out with not the least in this world, right? So you've been with Jack Canfield on a cruise ship. You've been with Dr. John DeMartini on multiple stages. Who are the other people you've hung out? Joe Dispenza.
Yes, sure. Look, I've had great conversations with those people one-on-one. I've had dinner with those people one-on-one, and you can really come along and pick up some really, really, it's quite inspiring to see that, these people really do open the doors, and they are the leaders in this field. Quite brilliant people. But I think today, the group of people that I work with, I'm very honored to have been able to work recently with a neurodegenerative scientist from Hong Kong. And I now find that I've got medical specialists who are coming to us, to me, to our organization, and saying, look, we heard of your clients healing. We're medical specialists. We cut people open up on a slab. That's what we do. But we know that diseases that our patients come to us are mostly emotional. We see that your work is helping them to heal. We want to know more about that. So part of our intention now at the moment is creating a medical team and putting a medical team together to discover at the fundamental level of each individual the work that we do and the processes that we've created to help people overcome their emotions, which changes their frequency, and exploring that. And I'm very, very enthused about that group that I'm working with right now, whereby we put test patients through our processes and monitor their responses in their body to the effect of the work that we're doing, so that we can really get in deeply to understand exactly what it is that we're doing.
Love it. Tell us a little bit more about Solfeggio. Before you do, I'll share this with the crowd. Solfeggio is obviously a program of meditation, the way that Ray is going to eloquently explain to you in a moment. But I've been practicing them myself, so has my wife, Andrea. And it's profound what you experience when you go through the guided meditations with Ray. Like, I can seriously tell you, things have seriously changed for the better in many ways. I won't expand too much on it, but I can tell you it is making a difference. So over to you now, Ray. Tell us a little bit more about Solfeggio.
Yeah, so we lost these ancient sciences dating back to, before there was any possibility of medical intervention. We're talking like millennium ago, which is many, many thousands of years. And there was a lost knowledge called Solfeggio. And Solfeggio is a series of frequencies that the body responds to. And we can take these Solfeggio frequencies and we can hide them in music, in a music track. And in hiding them in a music track, we can take these frequencies and we can embed them into a meditation. Now, the meditations that I produce are not your calming, sitting there with music meditations. These are guided projectiology meditations. So we're projecting something from the brain, the knowledge and information, and we're projecting it in our meditation in two forms: energy transfer frequency, chemical transfer biology. So in our meditations, the projectiology of these meditations is transmitting an electrical signal from the brain that the body will not ignore and does not ignore, and will become accustomed to and relate to and build a relationship with. We're also in meditation building a new chemical signature. So in other words, in our meditation, when you have a thought, you create a frequency, a vector in linear space. The brain then, with its mechanistic processes, will produce a chemical in accordance with the frequency, with the thought you're having. Why does it do that? It does that because the body lies in a state of stupidity. It doesn't know what's going on outside. It needs information. It needs to know what's happening around because it doesn't know. So how does it know? Well, guess what? The brain, we have a thought, builds a frequency, activates the endocrine system to produce chemicals. The endocrine system produces a chemical, which is a copy signature of the thought we're having. The chemical then is sent as a messenger to the body. The body then opens that, which is called expression, expresses the chemical produced in accordance with the thought, and then the body feels the thought. Now, so just think of that, Bram. If we have an ill body, and that ill body sits with its own chemical composition, its own chemical signature, the disease in the body needs these chemicals to keep living and growing the disease, which it does. We come along now, and in our meditation, we start to have new thoughts, creating new frequencies, producing new chemicals, life-enhancing chemicals, not life-destructive chemicals, and we start sending those chemicals to the body unintentionally because we don't have to intend the chemical to enter the body. It would just do it as part of its mechanistic feature. Then wouldn't you have to agree that over a period of time, we start to change the internal habitat of the body? And we start to give it a habitat whereby the disease, like algae in a river, if you don't keep polluting the river, well, then there's nowhere for the algae to live. So it's the same in the human body. If we replace that, but I think the brilliance of it all, Bram, is this. For some people, it's difficult to change their emotional state of being. It's difficult to keep catching themselves being themselves in their day. You know, that angry person that we say to them, hey, if you're angry, then you've got, lower level cancer. So you need to get rid of your anger. And that person struggles to get rid of their anger. So in struggling to do that then, getting rid of their anger, they can't do it. They're driving down the street and they're being angry. What Solfeggio does, Bram, is this. This is the brilliance of this. It bypasses all of that and parks it over there and says, okay, I get you. You struggle to change your emotional state of being, your internal chemical habitat, where your disease is living.
Yep.
What we do now is we come in and with Solfeggio frequencies and a guided projectiology meditation, that means a guided meditation where we're talking to that practicing meditator and we're guiding them and guiding their brain and guiding their mind. And then we're transferring energy into different parts of the body because wherever your consciousness goes, energy flows. So wherever your consciousness goes, energy flows. So in other words, all we have to do is use our consciousness as the vehicle to transfer energy. Now, we don't have to worry about how the energy gets there because it just rides on the back of consciousness. It's like a brilliant phenomenon that the body uses. And then all of a sudden, then the systems and organs in that body start to vibrate at a different frequency. And then that's called spontaneous remission from disease. Now watch, if we now have created a toxic relationship with that person that one day in the past that we declared that we love, and that declare that they love us, but then it just breaks down over time. Well, all we've done is we've literally, if we measure the frequency of that person that fell in love the first day and the person that's in the toxic relationship today, you will see two different frequencies. And frequencies are communal. They interact, communicate, and associate with each other. So if we come along now and we change our vibrational frequency, guess what? Frequencies are not in a vacuum contained within the human body. They express themselves beyond the human body. So our frequency starts to influence the frequencies of those people around us. And they're the people who come back and say to us, oh my God, my husband, Mick, he hasn't spoken to me properly in 10 years. Yes, he's in the house. Yes, we have dinner together, but he's never spoken to me properly. And all of a sudden today, he just walked up to me and said, have I told you recently how much I love you? And we have those stories. Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? And right. That is the power of Solfeggio frequency. Solfeggio frequency solves everything, Bram. Everything changes with this one thing called accessing the knowledge of human vibration, altering that vibration, and not having to be concerned about changing your emotional expression because sometimes that can be difficult. Let's go right to the core of the human and bring them back into nature, not nurture. A nature human. When a child is born, it is naturally perfect. It is a vibrational, perfect creation of God and heaven and the universe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But over time, then it gets stolen. So we steal the soul of the child. And all of a sudden, then we wonder why the child is angry at 7. Well, the child is angry at 7 because the one thing that we got to do that child to learn to do is to suppress their emotions. Don't tell me that you're sad. Don't tell me that you're crying. I don't want to hear your problems, and so on. And we start to suppress that emotion.
Yep. Or a lot of
Now, we go to
hyperactivity,
future.
which is a big thing these days with kids. So, they're all being labeled, they're all being stigmatized, and they're all being prescribed, right, for so-called being hyperactive. I think there's a lot more to be said when I'm listening to you there.
Your doctor will say to you, ADHD is a mental disease. It's not a disease, and it's not genetic. It's neither.
Tell us a little bit more. I'm mindful of time, but we got probably about 5 more minutes. There's 2 things I'd like us still to cover now. One would be, you sometimes talk about, how people get addicted to certain emotions. Now, walk us through the difference between if somebody is really addicted, for example, to something like either a lack of, or not being good enough, or angry, versus somebody who's really made the frequencies being of abundance, of joy, of can-do, and so on and so forth.
Bram, we have approximately 1,000 trillion connections in our brain. Now, to give you the economics of that, if you were to count to 1 million seconds, it would be 12 days. Take you 12 days to get there. If you counted to 1 billion, it would take you 32 years. If you counted to 1 trillion, it would take you 31,000 years to count to 1 trillion seconds. And your brain has 1,000 trillion connections all working in harmony. You are the most intelligent creature in the entire universe. Now look in the mirror tomorrow and try and figure that one out, right? How we're using it and not using it. The body has about 30 to 40 billion trillion cells, I should say, in the human body. So there's a lot going on in the human body. It's massive. And each cell has about between 15,000 to 200,000 what's called effector receptor sites on each cell. And each cell experiences about 100,000 chemical reactions per second. Now just start to put all of that into
big numbers.
We see a lot. Okay. So that's a lot of energy. So the body and the brain have what's called an energy preservation mechanism to preserve energy. The body has a great intelligence, and it has also a communication network pathway to the brain. So the body can speak to the brain by transferring blood messages to neural messages on the vagus nerve, which has neurotransmitters, and paraganglia for electrical signals and so on. So we can take a blood-borne message and convert it into an electrical message, which the brain absorbs and understands. If we now start to produce consistently a flow of chemicals, like, for example, you grow up and your mother says to you, you're no good, you're ugly. You start to feel that. Okay. Well, what'll happen then is you'll be thinking about it. So you keep kind of growing that. And as you think about it, and as you experience it with your mother, your father, your neighbor, your teacher, whatever it was, it may not be that you're ugly. It may be something else, that you're just not good enough. Hey, why can't you be better than your sister? Why can't you be like your brother? Why? What happens then is the brain starts to infatuate with that. And the brain infatuates with it because it's in those painful moments that we learn to be resilient. So we build complementary structures in the brain to deal with the trauma. These are called survival structures. They're brilliant. We need them for survival. But the brain latches onto this as a belief that there's something wrong with you. And the more you think about it, it starts to go what's called subconscious. So it goes into our unconscious brain. Now, the unconscious brain knows to keep thinking that you're not good enough, or you're not pretty enough, or you're not handsome enough. You're not thinking about it all the time, but you do from time to time. This subconscious thinking that we're not aware of still produces these 100,000 chemical reactions per cell per second in this massive body that we have. Massive amount of chemical production. And the body, in its state of intelligence, acknowledges that there is a consistent flow of chemicals. So the cells in the body adjust the loading ducts, which are called the effector receptor sites, and they adjust these loading ducts in anticipation of your negative future thought tomorrow, because it's going to produce a chemical. So it builds this loading duct, and it locks that loading duct in place. That's called an addiction. So, a drug addict is addicted to a chemical because literally his or her loading ducts are locked in place. Now, you remove the chemical from the drug addict, and they're going to do everything. They'll gnaw their finger off, whatever they have to do to get that drug. They'll do anything. They'll steal for it. They'll run away from home. They'll lose their job. They'll spend all their money. They'll do everything to get that chemical. Because the body is screaming to the brain saying, hey, you decided to give up this drug addiction. We're on a different trajectory down here. We're not ready to give this up. I'm addicted to this chemical. And the same goes for our negative, deflated thoughts. So I say to people, what's your problem? And they say, I just feel low self-worth. I felt it for years. And I say, okay, stop it. And they say, okay, I'll stop it, Ray. And they go home and they come back the next day and say, well, Ray, I just couldn't stop the thought. Of course you couldn't, because your body is addicted to the chemical that the thought creates.
So the body is now the master.
And the body's now the master. So that means that we become emotionally, chemically addicted to our pain, to our trauma. But isn't it our pain and our trauma that gave us our awesomeness and our greatness? Yes, it is. But we only see bad as bad and no good. And that is stress, and that is illness, that is disease, that is cancer, that is autoimmune disease. And we have processes, Bram, that go back to the root cause of that moment whereby that person's spirit was broken, and we polarize that. It's a piece of brilliance what we created, and we polarize that to let them emotionally see the other side of it so we can flip it for them, and that switches off the flow of chemicals. So if you say to me, Bram, what processes, Ray, besides meditation do your testimonial clients go through? They go through our polarization process as well as our meditation process at the same time.
That is so good. Now, Ray, I love this, and we could easily go on for another 24 hours, if not longer, but we don't have that time today. So where is the best way for people to find you, reach out to you, connect with you, and ask any questions they have?
Yes, I've got a new platform, Bram, which is called raybehan.com. So www.raybehan.com.
Yep.
And we use that for media, for media to reach out to us for interviews and so on and so forward.
Yep.
And then all of our work and meditation and courses are in our business, which is www.thinkandgroweducation.com.au.
That is brilliant.
raybehan.com, thinkandgroweducation.com.au.
Fantastic. Love this one. I really appreciate you spending a moment of your busy life with us. Love your work, Ray. I'll always happily endorse it, and I look forward to seeing you again next soon, and hopefully then in person. I think it's only a month away now, so it's good.
Great. Thank you, Bram, and thank you again for the opportunity.